What if everything you thought you knew about Bundy and Married with Children was only half the story? Behind the laughter and iconic moments lies a web of casting drama, bitter feuds, and personal regrets that even the biggest fans never guessed. Ed O'Neill has finally broken his silence, sharing honest and surprising truths that reveal how the show was almost derailed before it began, why certain scenes never aired, and what it really felt like to play one of TV's most infamous dads. Prepare to see the Bundys in a whole new light. Casting chaos and near misses. When the pilot for Married with Children was first filmed, the cast looked very different from the family viewers would come to know and love, or love to hate. Kelly and Bud Bundy were originally played by Tina Caspary and Hunter Carson, two young actors who, despite their efforts, failed to capture the specific balance the creators wanted. This early version of the Bundy family didn't quite feel right, the chemistry was off, and the dynamic didn't ring true. Behind closed doors, executives at Fox grew concerned that the family wouldn't be believable alongside Ed O'Neill as Old Bundy. Ed himself nearly lost the role of Old Bundy before the show even got off the ground. Despite his now famous audition, where he slumped into a chair with a weary sigh inspired by people he knew, network executives hesitated. Fox, still a fledgling network competing against television giants, wasn't ready to bet on an actor without a big name or proven track record. Ed admits he thought he had blown his chance when weeks passed without a call. Yet the creators insisted on his authenticity and defended him fiercely, believing his mix of defeated humor and genuine frustration was irreplaceable. The decision to replace Tina and Hunter after the pilot was brusque and painful. Both had signed on believing they were part of something permanent, only to be let go abruptly. For Ed, this was a difficult moment. He felt guilty about their loss, aware that their firing wasn't just about talent but about how well they fit around him. Tina Caspary lacked the quirky innocence mixed with subtle sexuality Kelly required, while Hunter Carson couldn't balance being both pitiable and confidently deluded as Bud. Christina Applegate and David Faustino stepped in, bringing the right energy to complete the dysfunctional family puzzle. Christina's first reading of Kelly's lines instantly won over the creators and cast alike, sealing her place as the iconic blonde. David's sharp comedic timing and ability to embody Bud's hopeful arrogance made the character vivid and relatable. Ed noticed immediately how natural it felt to work with the new kids, something missing during the pilot. The network's insistence on chemistry wasn't just superficial. They knew that Ed's role as always a linchpin, so everyone else had to orbit perfectly around him to sell the show's unique brand of dysfunctional humor. This early turbulence nonetheless set the foundation for the Bundys' authenticity. It transformed them into a family that felt simultaneously flawed, relatable, and absurd, a combination that audiences would latch onto for over a decade. Yet the strain from the early casting challenges hinted at the tensions that would simmer behind the scenes throughout the show's run. The pressure to maintain this fragile balance between characters was relentless, and Ed's role carried more weight than many fans realized. Despite these early setbacks, Ed O'Neill threw himself into the character of Old Bundy with unmatched dedication. He wasn't just playing a part. He was embodying a man trapped by life's disappointments in a way no sitcom dad had before. This intensity sparked friction with the cast and crew, but also created the raw material that made Old Bundy unforgettable. The chemistry you found with Christina and David was only the beginning of the challenges and triumphs to come. The foundational casting struggles remind us that what looks effortless on screen often comes from painstaking trial and error. The Bundy family that millions came to know was not inevitable. It was painstakingly crafted through near misses and tough decisions. And beneath the laughs lay a story of risk, resilience, and a show that could have fallen apart before it truly began. Those early casting upheavals merely foreshadowed the unique and sometimes difficult pressures of bringing Married with Children to life in front of a live audience every week. Ed's unique portrayal of Old Bundy. Ed O'Neill's whole approach to Old Bundy was kinda different from most sitcom patriarchs back then. Instead of tossing out the lines with that practiced kind of humor, or doing some quiet wink to the audience, Ed kind of leaned into playing like a guy who was genuinely ground down by life's little disappointments. Like every defeated sigh and every sarcastic comment, even those worn-out looks, they all felt like they belonged to someone stuck, sort of, in circumstances he couldn't really stay. That realness is what gave the character extra depth. So people ended up laughing and also kind of sympathizing, which isn't always easy to balance. And he didn't stop at the script either. Ed went through the pages carefully, like obsessively almost, and then he slipped in little mannerism for all that he picked up from his own family. So the timing stayed funny, but underneath it there was this raw emotional truth that kept cutting through. Meanwhile, compared to those more polished sitcom dads who felt a bit like a performance, Ed's all felt rough, sharp, and honestly worn down, irritable, sarcastic, and pretty much miserable more often than not. Still, even with all that cynicism, there was a small thread of humanity running through it, and that's why all stuck with audiences in a way not many characters managed to. But this kind of intensity was sort of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it made Old Bundy become television's most iconic loser, and it also fueled that show's darker kind of humor. On the other hand, though, it brought some tension off-screen, and that part was messy. Ed's serious commitment to keeping Old real sometimes just didn't match with the way certain cast members approached the role or the show. They were more casual about it, like less intense, less careful. Fans might not always see the friction, but it was simmering anyway, and yeah, it ended up shaping the working environment for the whole series. Ed didn't want Old turned into a caricature or outright villain. He kept pushing the idea that the joke part should come from his defeat, not from cruelty, like not from something mean. That stance meant there had to be constant back and forth with the writers and producers, who would regularly try to nudge things farther to keep the content edgy and controversial. So Ed's insistence on protecting O's core basically made him a kind of guardian of the character. He influenced dialogue, physical comedy, and even the general tone the show carried week after week. And honestly, his nuanced performance was pretty groundbreaking, especially back when most sitcom dads were either lovable buffoons or stern patriarchs. Old Bundy added this extra dimension. He was a frustrated everyman, and a lot of viewers recognized him in a way that felt painfully familiar. That layered approach made the humor sharper, more cutting too, but it also put heavy demands on Ed's craft and stamina, like constantly. For Ed, Old Bundy wasn't simply a role. It became this all-encompassing identity thing that kinda shaped his career and personal life for years on end. Even though later he found a kind of relief by taking on very different, new types of characters, in those early days the weight of such a distinctive part felt massive. It brought fame, but then also typecasting, and then this messy legacy that would keep unfolding over decades, like it didn't really know when to stop. And yeah, despite all the hurdles, Ed's portrayal hit sitcom comedy in a big way. He helped pioneer this darker, more cynical kind of humor that sort of seeped into a lot of shows after that, for generations. His commitment to authenticity kept Old Bundy from fading even when the scripts got repetitive, or maybe started to feel polarizing depending on who you asked. The character's contradictions made him endlessly interesting, for fans and critics alike, in a way that was hard to copy. That mix of gritty realism paired with broad satire really laid the groundwork that let Married with Children push the boundaries of TV comedy. Still, the pressures of live, weekly performance added an extra layer of stress for Ed and the whole cast, which honestly just made everything more intense than it already was. Performing in front of an audience night after night tested everything Ed had built into Old Bundy's character. Live audience pressure and comedic challenges. For over a decade, Ed O'Neill and the cast of Married with Children performed in front of live studio audiences of 300 to 500 people per episode, a demanding environment that many fans rarely consider. Unlike shows that use laugh tracks or are shot without an audience, the cast face immediate and unfiltered reactions to every joke, physical gag, and line delivery. This real-time feedback created an electric but unforgiving atmosphere. If a joke landed perfectly, the energy in the room would surge, fueling the cast performances. But when a scene fell flat, the silence was almost palpable and crushing. Ed recalls moments when he could feel the audience's attention wane, forcing the cast to improvise or push their performances even harder to win them back. Maintaining that level of intensity week after week was exhausting, especially as the series progressed and some storylines felt repetitive. The pressure extended behind the camera as well. Episodes that didn't get the desired audience reaction often required multiple takes, dramatically extending filming times. If the crowd laughed for too long, it disrupted timing. If they didn't laugh enough, the director would call for another take to tweak delivery. Ed said some episodes doubled their shooting time just trying to capture the perfect balance. Physical comedy proved particularly grueling. Ed performed countless pratfalls, fake punches, and slapstick stunts that looked effortless on screen, but left him with real bruises and aches. One memorable scene involving wrestling with oversized women's shoes literally wore down Ed's back by the 5th season. Despite the pain, he pushed through because delivering laughs was non-negotiable. However, the presence of a live audience sometimes created awkward or tense moments. Jokes that crossed invisible lines generated tension, and unexpected laughter at unintended moments forced the cast to adapt on the fly. Katie Sagal admitted she disliked filming certain Peg Bundy scenes in front of real people, feeling her character's laziness and sexual teasing became more exposed and vulnerable. Still, Ed acknowledged that the immediacy and unpredictability of live reactions injected an energy that couldn't be replicated. It made the show special and connected the cast directly with their audience. Yet, reflecting back, Ed is unsure his body could endure that relentless grind again. The physical and emotional toll shaped his memories of the show as much as the fame and acclaim. The live audience experience deepened the pressures behind the scenes, where personal conflicts quietly brewed and complicated the Bundy family's off-screen story. The long-standing feud with Amanda Bears. One of the more surprising and personal things Ed O'Neill ever talked about was his messy relationship with Amanda Bears, who played Marcia Rhodes. A lot of fans had always sort of guessed there was tension between them, but Ed finally came out and said, yeah, it was real, and it went on for years. What kicked it off sounded small at first, but it was kind of brutal underneath, like a TV guide cover back in 1989 that put only Ed and Katie Sagal on the front, leaving out Amanda and David Garrison like they were just not there. Ed says he already knew about the cover before it happened, but he stayed quiet anyway, figuring, as a lead, it made sense that himself and Katie would take the top spots. Amanda, though, was having none of that. She was upset and felt straight-up disrespected, like she was being pushed aside. She truly believed her work on the show was getting glazed over. Ed later admitted that in hindsight he should have stood up for her and David, but instead he kept his mouth shut, and that silence just made the whole gap bigger between them. So what started as a little omission turned into this long behind-the-scenes Cold War that neither side seemed too motivated to thaw. By 1993, the distance had grown so wide that Amanda didn't even invite Ed to her wedding. She explained later that she believed his presence would cause uncomfortable feelings among other guests because of their strained relationship, or at least that was her version. Ed took it personally. He basically read it as a sort of public statement that their interaction was nothing but professional and completely without personal friendship. After that, for years, the two barely spoke. They only exchanged word when the scripts basically forced them to share scenes, like it was just procedural and not, human. The tension showed on set too. Their shared scenes turned awkward and heavy with stuff neither of them said out loud. Other cast members, including Katie Sagal, tried to nudge things back into place at one point, but both sides stayed stubborn, so no real reconciliation ever landed. Christina Applegate, meanwhile, got stuck in the middle. She remembered feeling unsure about how to act around them, without accidentally making it worse, which honestly is its own kind of stress. The whole split seemed to bend the atmosphere and ensemble dynamics in subtle ways, yet undeniable ones, like a pressure you can't quite point at. Years later, Ed kind of regretted the way he handled that whole conflict. He basically admitted that his ego got in the way and made him miss what Amanda was actually feeling, even though he was a key supporting member of the show. The small problem tied to the TV guide cover was, unintentional, but then his inability to back her up turned what was basically an unfortunate oversight into something a lot more damaging. At a fan convention in 2025, Amanda said that even if time has softened her feelings, she still really wished Ed had stood up for the entire cast back then. Ed has also said he'd apologize if he gets the chance, though. It's still unclear if they've ever actually reconciled in private. Still, this feud ended up shaping the behind-the-scenes mood far more than most fans ever imagined. It shows how even a close-knit, publicly comic family can keep real, long-lasting tensions tucked away from cameras. The Bundy family dynamic, funny on screen, still had its own emotional cracks off-screen. And honestly, that tension also made the whole professionalism part harder for a long-running production. While Ed's dedication to Al Bundy sometimes created friction, his conflict with Amanda made it pretty obvious that personal feelings and careers can collide in ways viewers don't usually see. The irony, of course, is that this discord was simmering under a show that's literally built on dysfunction, and somehow that mess, in a strange way, helped the performances feel more authentic. This fraught personal landscape paralleled Ed's sometimes contentious relationship with the show's creative team, where he drew firm lines around his portrayal of all content boundaries and creative control. Ed O'Neill was not just a passive performer on Married with Children. He was an active shaper of old Bundy's character, sometimes clashing with the writers and producers when storylines pushed too far. For most of the show's run, Ed vigilantly guarded the balance between Ul as a lovably defeated loser and not a genuinely cruel or malicious figure. There was one particular episode where Ed outright refused to film a scene that he believed crossed this line, nearly sparking a major conflict behind the scenes. While he never specified the exact scene or episode, Ed described it as one where Ul's character risked coming across as vicious rather than pitiful. The writers, accustomed to pushing boundaries and controversy, initially resisted Ed's objections. But Ed insisted that turning Ul into a villain would alienate viewers and undermine everything that made the character relatable. After tense discussions, the scene was rewritten to soften Ul's portrayal while preserving the show's edgy tone. This episode was not the only time Ed questioned the creative direction. As the series progressed, especially in seasons 8 and 9, scripts often recycled jokes and ideas, forcing Ed to find ways to keep his performance fresh and believable. His dedication meant altering line deliveries, adding mannerisms, and even ad-libbing moments that became iconic. The writers trusted his insight because he understood the character better than anyone else involved. Unlike many sitcom stars who simply recited scripts, Ed's influence grew to the point where he effectively co-created Ul Bundy's identity. This responsibility brought both creative freedom and burdensome pressure. Ul had to remain consistent amid rapidly evolving scripts and external challenges, a balancing act that Ed carried quietly but firmly. The depth of Ed's control over the character surprised many fans who saw Ul Bundy only as a straightforward, crude comic figure. Behind the scenes, Ed fought for a nuanced, sometimes contradictory mix, pathetic yet sympathetic, crude but honest. This struggle extended beyond the scripts and physical comedy into an ongoing campaign to protect Ul's fundamental humanity. His vigilance helped the show avoid alienating its core audience, even as it provoked critics and sparked controversy. Ed's stand on key scenes ensured